you like adventure?
Do you get an adrenaline rush from reading textbooks?
What would you do if you could go back in time?
What would you see?
Where would you go?
The Crusades! Ancient Greece? Would you witness the birth of Jesus?
Or sail the seven seas?
What food would you eat?
How would you survive?
It's bigger than we've imagined!
Join us as we travel back in time.
Before the days of 21st century technology.
Journey with us to the British Columbia of the 1920s.
Experience the hardships!
The toil!
The excitement!
The excitement! This is more than history.
This is more than history.
It's your history.
It's your history.
Cause we're booming out the stereo system. This goes out to anyone listening. Booming out the stereo system. Can't rep the bullshit with this one. Booming out the stereo system. This goes out to anyone listening. Booming out the stereo system. Cause we rock for show with stereo.
It was difficult and a lot of times people would be here and they couldn't make it, okay? But they'd done some improvements, and the next person would come along and buy it, and they'd do some more improvements, and those that were successful, may well have stayed there for 60, 80 years. Stayed in the family farm. But that's the way all pioneers work. It's a transition. Some of the first people don't make it, but the next person carries on, and eventually it's developed.
The history of farming and pioneering in British Columbia is full of ups and downs. The first settlers had to not only clear the land, but convert it to farm use. An excellent example of some of the first settlers in British Columbia were the Ladner brothers.
Now, the Ladner brothers had come through quite early, going to the gold rush, having crossed North America to California and came up by ship. They had noted on their way through, of course, as the story goes, that this was nice-looking land, and they were from a farming background in England. And so after they had participated in the gold rush, they had business in New Westminster. They came in preempted properties on either side of the Chiloclin Slough. Yeah, the Ladners actually lived here. They did have a business in town, or Thomas did anyway, and they actively farmed. Thomas was quite a businessman, and he got involved in the fishery. He didn't just make his living farming.
So how much money did farmers in BC make?
It wasn't an awful lot. It just wasn't. Yeah. And it was a little tough for the guys here because cash flow was hard, and they had taxes to pay, and Delta needed roads built and repaired, and so what a lot of people did then would contract with Delta to haul gravel for their road. Okay, and that they would work off their tax bill that way.
Many farmers had trouble staying financially stable living on farm income alone. This is why many early pioneers took up second jobs in off seasons.
Yes, time went by, yes. The things did stabilize. Things improved. The markets were better, and as the land was in production, things improved for them. Although a lot of them, and even today, a lot of them would take other jobs in the off season, sort of a thing, and people do it today. Like they're going to start farming, well, they may well be in another business, or they'll have a second revenue stream. Like maybe they've got a farm, but they have a dump truck, or they're, for a time. And the other things that were important for marketing a good business were breeding horses for sale, riding horses, and especially work horses. and several teams a year, a few teams a year would be sold off this farm for off-farm, well, on-farm or off-farm use. And the city, all the transport was pulled by horses. The milk, people had horses running up and down selling, peddling milk and bread and stuff like this. And so yeah, transport was, that was another farm enterprise, selling horses for the trade.
While I was talking to Warren, Finn was digging up some information on small businesses in British Columbia.
The classic example of a real estate store where you could buy a house for $1,000. Some of the places that were for sale and rent during the time period for very hefty prices of the late hundreds and early thousands. In clothes shops of the early 20th century, there were several varieties of clothing for men and women. As the industry grew bigger, more products were available. The average price of a very fancy hat was around $2. These are early classic examples of canned goods that could be found in any sort of general store. Similar to today, back in the early 20th century, there was a wide variety of tobacco products that could be purchased at a general store. Soda was very popular and famous amongst the youth of that time, and it still is today. This is the earliest example of a coffee grinder. For those with a sweet tooth, the general store was the place to go. These are various examples of early appliances. Things such as stoves, pictured here. These were common to be found in general stores of the time period. By the time of the early 20th century, cameras were on a huge rise. In examples such as these advertisements, they were encouraging you to bring the Kodak camera home and take pictures with your family. The creation of the CPR, the Canadian Pacific Railway, was a huge source of jobs for not only the Chinese but many white men. It brought much attention towards British Columbia and made it one of the most popular provinces in Canada. This is the Ford Model T, the first affordable car to ordinary Canadians back in the early 20th century, and perhaps one of the most famous cars of all time. Henry Ford himself was quoted to say, "The Ford Model T could be purchased in any color as long as it was black."